Ling Han was a man of simple principles. If you do not bother me, then I will not bother you either. But if you dare to mess with me, then you should be well prepared to suffer my wrath. You've messed with me several times now. Do you really think I'm an easy target? He asked coldly. Jin Wushang really felt like he wanted to weep himself to death. At noontime, it was he who had been flung out, and now it was also he who had been slapped. All these times, it was he who was on the losing side, okay? And you still dare to say all this. There's no such logic in this world. Of course, he would definitely not reflect on the fact that it was he who had provoked Ling Han intentionally at both occasions. You can be proud however you want now, but when my elder brother comes later, you'll suffer. Jin Wushang said harshly. He believed that his elder brother would definitely avenge him later. Pa, pa, pa! Ling Han gave him 4 consecutive slaps. There was no sign that he had taken Jin Wushang's threat seriously. I'll be waiting. With these last words, Ling Han, Liu Yutong, and Qi Jiantai entered the prince's residence together. How come you're even more of a troublemaker than I am? The 7th princess sighed in a sorrowful manner. You've really caused a disaster now. That was a brat from the Jin clan. Although he himself is not worthy of respect, his elder brother is Jin Wuji. Haven't I told you how powerful Jin Wuji is? And yet you still dare to provoke him. I have to quickly inform Master and ask him to clean up the mess for you. I'm not going to get implicated in this. Ling Han gave a light rap to her head and said, if you hadn't harbored evil intentions and had not failed to issue me an invitation, how would there have been so many problems? What evil intentions? You must not wrong an innocent person. Qi Jiantai quickly shook her head vigorously, looking like a rattledrum. She was definitely not going to admit to such a crime. I had just forgotten, okay? Big sister Liu, don't you agree with me? She asked Liu Yutong, acting like a spoiled child. Liu Yutong maintained her cool demeanor, causing Qi Jiantai's eyes to light up. She really felt that this big sister was an individual with quite a personality. The 3 of them arrived at the main hall. There was close to 100 tables here, but they weren't the usual round tables. Instead, they were minuscule long tables, which at most would be able to accommodate 2 people at a time. This setting allowed each guest their own table. If they had brought a companion, then it wouldn't be too much of a tight fit for 2 people to sit at one table. These tables were arranged in rows of 5, from the doorway of the main hall and further in. Obviously, the further in your table was, the higher your status was. Currently, most of the tables were occupied. Aside from an empty table in the first row, the other empty tables were all arranged after the 10th row. Just find some place to sit, Qi Jiantai said, the corners of her lips lifting up slightly to reveal a crafty smile. She had posed a difficult problem to Ling Han, as she wanted to see where this guy would choose to sit. It was difficult because there was only one empty table at the front, but this was the first row, and only the strongest of the younger generation had the right to sit there. Ling Han's cultivation level was obviously still far from this level. But if Ling Han obediently went to sit at the back, this showed that he did not have much ambition and would capitulate easily. Yet Ling Han did not ponder much about this so-called difficult problem. He only gave a short nod, and without thinking much, headed to the first row. Although he had let go of the glory of his last life, he still possessed the heart of an elite warrior. Since there was an empty space in the first row, he would naturally choose to sit there. Qi Jiantai stuck out her tongue and thought that there would be a good show to watch soon. But she did not overstep her limits. She quickly commanded a servant to go forth to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion to inform Jiang Weishan. Otherwise, if things became too much to handle, it would not be easily ended. In? Yi? Ah! Seeing Ling Han stride towards the front, those who had already occupied their seats all revealed shocked expressions, as they all thought the same thing. Who is this guy? Looks like he's going to sit in the front row. But out of the 5 tables in the first row, 4 were already occupied. The last empty table also actually had an owner. It's just that he hadn't arrived yet. It belonged to Jin Wuji. Was this guy an idiot? He even dared to steal Jin Wuji's table? Interesting. The 4 people who were already seated in the first row all smiled, Some of them wore mocking smiles, while there were some who were genuinely smiling in curiosity, wondering whether this brat was an arrogant fool or someone who had real power to back it up. However, very soon, their gazes became focused on Lu Yutong. This young girl was really too beautiful. Though she seemed a little cold, this was also a kind of temperament. Moreover, she was very strong. Could it be that she was the master and the brat in front was only her attendant? It was more logical to think this way. The four of them almost choked because they saw Ling Han sit down boldly while Lu Yutong sat at his side. With this, who was the master and who was the attendant was easily seen. It was really inconceivable. Such an extraordinarily beautiful and extremely powerful maiden could only be seated at this brat's side. Who exactly was he? He must be the heir to some great clan. Otherwise, he would not have dared to take Jin Wuji's table. Ha ha ha! I've made you all wait. Clear laughter was heard all of a sudden as a tall, thin man strode out of the inside door of the main hall. He had a majestic gait, presenting a kingly visage. This was not a ruler in terms of power, but in terms of a kind of confidence in himself. Greetings, fourth prince. Everyone stood from their seats. Now that the host was here, the guests would of course have to stand up and pay due respects. The fourth prince had a table of his own, and his table was the furthermost in front. Moreover, he sat facing the doorway, while the others sat facing the walls. Sit, everyone, please be seated. The fourth prince, Chi Yongye's eyes swept over his guests, and when he discovered an unfamiliar face in the first row, he could not help feeling startled. Who might this be? Why had he taken Jin Wuji's table? But his gaze quickly spotted Lu Yutong, and his heart was stirred. He also belonged to the Huyang Academy, so he naturally recognized Lu Yutong to be a noble daughter of the Liu clan, yet she actually sat at Ling Han's side. This. How could Chi Yongye not experience a great shock at this? But he was still the fourth prince, and so was naturally very shrewd. There was no change in the expression on his face, though his eyes had still stayed on Lu Yutong's figure for a few moments longer. This did not attract the suspicion of others, because this was a normal occurrence. She was so beautiful that any man would want to stare at her for a moment longer. Let me introduce to you. Chi Yongye revealed a smile, confident and calm, displaying fully his royal air. He pointed at the first person seated at the first table towards the left in the first row. This is Li Dongyue, Brother Li. He's the personally taught disciple of the sect master of Stone Wolf Sect. Brother Li, it has been a long time. You're about to break through to Gushing Spring Tier, right? Li Dongyue laughed heartily and said, Fourth Prince, you should not tease me. Even you have not broken through to Gushing Spring Tier. How is it possible that I would be qualified to? Brother Li is really too modest. Chi Yongye pointed at the second person towards the left. This is Baili Tengyun, the son of the sect master of Baili sect. Baili Tengyun was extremely young. He seemed to be only about 17 or 18 years old. He was a little cool, only giving a light as greeting. Chi Yongye did not take it to heart and continued his round of introductions. Next is Xuanhuan, Brother Xia. He came from Fuyang Town, and he's only 18 years old. He did not participate in the previous Dayuan tournament, but I believe that he will definitely show extraordinary talent in this tournament. This is Lu Yu, Brother Lu. Like Brother Xia, he's also 18 years old, and I am very optimistic about his upcoming performance. And the last... Chi Yongye's gaze stopped on Ling Han's figure, and his words paused. He did not continue to speak, because he did not know how to continue. However, he did not feel the slightest bit awkward. Instead, he only smiled and looked at Ling Han expectantly, as if waiting for Ling Han to introduce himself. He could also admit that he himself was curious about Ling Han's identity. Who exactly was he to be able to have the noble daughter of the Liu clan serve by his side?